Dark night sky over Kiev suddenly lit up with fiery missile trails cutting across. Explosions hitting residential apartments, glass and debris flying into the air. Families running into underground shelters with fear in their eyes. A destroyed children's playground, swings burned, toys scattered. A Ukrainian soldier standing guard, face lit by fire from the distance. A broken peace dove mural on a bombed wall, symbolizing crushed hope. Western diplomats shaking hands at a peace conference table, contrasted with battlefield chaos. Split screen image. Left side shows leaders speaking of peace, right side shows Russian tanks firing. A ticking clock with Ukraine's map fading in the background, symbolizing time running out. Bold words appear in the sky of war smoke. Can peace survive under fire? A round table of Western leaders smiling, papers and pens ready for peace talks. Donald Trump confidently raising, his hand making a bold claim about ending the war. A hopeful crowd of Ukrainians watching a TV broadcast of peace discussions. A bright sunrise over Kiev symbolizing new hope. Suddenly, missiles streak across the sky, turning dawn into fire. A hospital being evacuated after a strike. Doctors rushing patients on stretchers. Burned-out civilian cars on a highway, smoke rising in the background. A mother holding her child tightly in a basement, candlelight flickering. A torn banner of peace lying on rubble, soaked in rain. Contrasting imagery. Conference room still intact versus destroyed Ukrainian street on the other side of the frame. A dimly lit Kremlin office with Putin sitting at a long polished table, papers stacked high. Old black and white photo of the Minsk. Agreements being signed, pens in hands, smiles of diplomacy. Red stamp slamming onto a paper labeled Broken Agreement. Montage of Russian tanks rolling despite ceasefire deals, dust clouds rising. Ukrainian civilians looking at shattered ceasefire posters on a wall. Western leaders in a conference room, whispering with skeptical expressions. A chessboard with Putin's hand moving a piece deceptively, symbolizing manipulation. A locked door with a plaque, Peace Talks, but a Russian hand trying to force it open. A Western diplomat tearing up a negotiation paper in frustration. A symbolic image of two microphones on a stage, one shining, West, the other covered in shadow, Russia. A giant NATO flag waving in the wind against a cloudy sky. Map of Europe glowing, highlighting Finland and Sweden newly added into NATO. Peaceful street scene in Helsinki, people walking casually, life normal. No war. Split image, Sweden joining. NATO quietly versus Ukraine burning in war. A Russian propaganda poster screaming, NATO is the threat, pinned to a wall. A Ukrainian soldier raising their flag proudly, standing firm on the front line. Close-up of Putin's hand pointing at a NATO map angrily. A shattered mirror showing NATO's logo on one side, Russia's tanks reflected on the other. A puzzle, board with Ukraine at the center, Russia trying to remove the peace. Dramatic wide shot. NATO headquarters shining with blue lights, contrasted with a war-torn Ukrainian city under red flames. A large, empty chair at a diplomatic round table. Spotlight, shining on it. Polish flag folded neatly on the table. Untouched, symbolizing absence. European leaders exchanging tense looks, quiet whispers around the table. A split screen. Poland's streets with protests and banners versus EU leaders shaking hands. A calendar page flipping to show missed meetings, Poland's absence growing louder. A broken bridge symbolizing cracks within the Western Al. A close-up of a Polish official turning away from a microphone, refusing to speak. A cracked glass globe. Of Europe with a fracture running through Poland's place. A Ukrainian soldier looking anxiously toward the west, worried about divisions. Wide shot of a negotiation hall with one empty flag stand. Poland missing from the row. Massive map of Ukraine spread across a Kremlin war room table, covered with red markers. Russian generals in uniform leaning over the map, pointing at key cities. Animated arrows showing missile routes hitting energy plants and rail lines. A Ukrainian power station exploding in flames. Blackout across a city. Dark apartments lit only by candles. Families shivering in the cold. Russian tanks moving in formation across muddy terrain. Dust clouds rising. A symbolic chessboard with Russia advancing pawns. Ukraine's king under pressure. Drone footage view. Destroyed roads and bridges cutting supply routes. Putin's cold, calculating face in profile, half lit in shadow, a ticking metronome beside a battlefield clock, symbolizing Russia's slow, grinding strategy of exhaustion. A crying child holding a teddy bear inside a bombed-out apartment. Rows of refugees walking along a muddy road with suitcases and backpacks. A grandmother sitting on rubble, holding a family photo frame. A destroyed school, chalkboard still, visible under collapsed walls. Doctors in a crowded hospital rushing between injured civilians on stretchers. A mass grave covered with simple wooden crosses in a muddy field. A lone Ukrainian soldier kneeling by a comrade's helmet placed on the ground. A mother cooking soup over a fire in a basement shelter for her children. A refugee train packed with people, hands pressed against foggy windows. Close-up of a child's drawing, a house, sun, and peace dove lying torn on the floor of a shelter. Cargo planes unloading crates of weapons marked with Western flags. Ukrainian soldiers smiling as they unpack anti-tank missiles. A factory. In Europe producing ammunition, sparks flying. A politician at a podium announcing billions in aid with applause. A graph showing rising costs and budgets under pressure. A Ukrainian soldier staring at an empty ammo box in a muddy trench. A broken supply truck stuck in snow, wheels deep in mud. Western citizens protesting with signs, money for peace, not war. Close-up of a financial newspaper headline, aid fatigue. Split image, a shining warehouse full of aid versus a Ukrainian front line running low. Hourglass on a Kremlin desk, sand slowly falling. European leaders around a table, arguing and pointing fingers. A Russian strategist circling dates on a calendar. Winter snow covering Ukraine. Soldiers huddled in trenches. Propaganda posters flooding social media feeds, dividing opinions. A cracked shield labeled Unity, breaking apart under pressure. A clock tower in Kyiv, its hands frozen at midnight during a blackout. Russia and China shaking hands in a darkened conference room. A NATO flag with threads slowly unraveling. Wide aerial shot, Ukraine in flames while distant capitals remain lit and calm. A Ukrainian child planting a small tree among ruins. A dove flying across a war-torn skyline, sunlight breaking through clouds. Leaders shaking hands in a symbolic peace gesture, blurred but hopeful. A classroom reopening, children laughing, desks repaired, soldiers lowering weapons, embracing family members, a rebuilt bridge with people walking across joyfully, Ukrainian flag waving proudly under a clear blue sky. A book titled History closing, then another opening with the word Future. A globe turning slowly, highlighting Ukraine shining bright. Final wide shot, sunrise over Kyiv, golden light symbolizing peace and resilience.